China says issues in Xinjiang are about combating violence, terrorism, and separatism, not about human rights. But U.S. President Donald Trump just signed a bill on the issues into law. Why the disconnect? What's the impact there? And Beijing is battling a new cluster of COVID-19 cases after 56 days of no locally transmitted cases. What do new clusters like these, especially in areas where the virus seemed under control, say about the global fight ahead? I'm Zhengxin in for Liu Xin today. Welcome to The Point. China on Friday slammed U.S. enactment of a so-called Human Rights Act related to China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The Chinese Foreign Ministry called it a stigma of Xinjiang's measures against terrorism, separatism, and radicalization. Despite Beijing's strong opposition, U.S. President Donald Trump signed the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act 2020 into law on Wednesday, authorizing sanctions on individuals and entities responsible for alleged human rights abuse in Xinjiang. Given the act was first introduced in January 2019, what's behind the timing? Why does the act matter now? And what's the whole story in Xinjiang? Joining me for the discussion is Wang Jiang, a postdoctoral researcher in the Institute of Law at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and via Skype, and Professor Zhengxin from China University of Political Science and Law on the phone. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Before we get started, I want to have both of you listen to this response from the Chinese Foreign Ministry on this very issue on Friday.
This regarding the facts, the U.S. bill viciously attacks the Chinese government's policies in Xinjiang and the human rights situation in Xinjiang. China is firmly opposed to attempts to stigmatize the anti-terrorism, anti-separatism, and de-radicalization measures in Xinjiang, and the blatant practice of double standards on the issue of counterterrorism.
Mr. Wang, let me start with you. China and the United States have completely different ideas and understandings about the nature and the purpose of those vocational training centers. According to this U.S. Act, the establishment and actions committed in the centers may constitute crimes against humanity. How do you look at those accusations as laid out in this act, which is now being signed into law by President Trump?
Clearly, the U.S. was once again play with double standards related to the counterterrorism issue. That is nothing new if you get familiar with the U.S. counterterrorism policy. In fact, it is just become like a U.S. political tool or approach. So when a state have a similar national interest with the U.S., then they become like as same as George W. Bush said after 9/11, you become like one of us. But when people or when the state have different interests with the U.S., then they start use this double standard on the counterterrorism issue to interfere in other countries' domestic affair. So in fact, I think when U.S. facing its own counterterrorism policy, it is also have like so-called double standard. They have like when they're facing a U.S. citizen, they have like a whole bunch of like law and human rights standards there. But when it's facing a foreign citizen, it is another standard. That is why U.S. and some other countries, some European countries, used to build a black box in Europe to interrogating some of the suspects. So about this section, I just think that is perfect example of this double standard, and it is just nonsense.
I see. Professor Hua, those differences in what's happening in Xinjiang and what works best for the people of Xinjiang, where do you think they stem from?
Well, I think that the U.S., in my eyes, willfully ignores China's efforts to fight against terrorism in Xinjiang. We all know that during the 1990s and the first decades of the 21st century, there was a lot of terrorist attacks in Xinjiang, which claimed lives of many people. That is a violation of human rights. And because of the efforts made by the Chinese government, the situation now is becoming much better. In the past 3 years, there is no terrorist attack. Xinjiang has resumed stability and prosperity. This is a big progress of human rights. However, now the U.S. passed a law, tries to, claiming that China is a violation of law. So I think that the double standard is really the key words to classify the Uyghur Policy Act of 2010. So I fully agree with Professor Wang's comment. Well, I think that terrorism is the common enemy to all countries. Both China and the U.S. are the victims of terrorism. However, I think that we can find that when terrorists attack the U.S., these countries have done everything to fight terrorism. It even waged war in foreign territories. However, when China is fighting terrorism in its own territory, it says that, okay, you cannot do that. It's a violation of law, human rights. So I think that it's a double standard on the anti-terrorism issue.
I want to now zoom in with both of you on the general situation in Xinjiang now, because according to Shoura Zakir, that's the chairman of the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, who said at the end of last year, all of the trainees in those vocational education and training centers have graduated and found employment with the help of the government. Mr. Wang, can you shed light on what has been happening in Xinjiang since then? We're now 6 months past that time when all of the people had graduated from those centers. What's been happening to their lives?
Yeah, okay. So from my knowledge and also my studies, it's just the same as you mentioned, and also the announcement made by the Chinese government that all the students of all the trainers have just finished the training in the training center, and now they have like a new working skill, and also they've been through the language training. So it is totally the disadvantaged position when they're facing the job market. So after that, by the help with the government and also the community, many of them is finding a job, and some of them was just leaving the rural area and finally have the opportunity to working in the big city. So I would say some of them, the life is totally changed, which means even better. And if you considering the current situation with the pandemic, I think it's even more meaningful. I mean, the whole world was, everybody facing unemployment problems. So actually, the training centers programs does quite a lot on the working job market. So compared with 2019, I mean, in Xinjiang, the first season, the GDP only dropped like 0 to 2%, and the growth rate is higher than the national average level, about 6.6%. So meaning Xinjiang, we already overcome the very difficult time, and the people is facing a much better life right now.
Professor Hua, how important are these achievements mentioned by Mr. Wang just now? How important are they to peace and development in Xinjiang? And do you feel that these achievements are neglected and ignored for outsiders looking in on the situation in Xinjiang? How do they not register as improved situation there in Xinjiang? Both of you suggested that double standards on the part of the U.S. was behind the disconnect in understanding the situation in Xinjiang. And if these achievements can't be observed, then this is a dead end.
Okay. Well, as you know that in China, there is a common saying, which is practice the sword test of truth. And the situation in Xinjiang shows that now there is significant achievements have been made in Xinjiang. Now there is prosperity, stability in Xinjiang. So I should say that the whole world, I think most countries can notice what happened in Xinjiang. But I think that the U.S. and some Western countries seem to willfully turn a blind eye to what happened in Xinjiang. They just believe that what the Chinese government has done is a violation of human rights, and they do not want to know what happened in China. So I think that the problem is that they do not want to know what happened in Xinjiang. So that is the problem. So I should say that no matter what the Chinese government has done and what the government has, tell the truth to the world, these Western, especially some American politicians, they just turn a blind eye. That cracks the problem.
A lot of those truths are presented in numbers. For example, there has not been a single terrorist attack in Xinjiang in 3.5 years. And between 2014 and 2018, Xinjiang lifted a total of over 2 million out of poverty, and also more than 70% of the general public budget expenditures in the autonomous region are used to improve people's livelihood. Let's set those data aside. Mr. Wang, I understand you are originally from Xinjiang. When you talk to your family and your friends back there in the region, how do you feel about changes happening to their lives there?
Xinjiang suffered the terrorism threat for decades, for a really long time. It's just the same as the documentary film pointed out by the CGTN this morning. It is just become like a generation matters. From my generation, even the generation older than me or younger than me, we all go through these decades. But right now, we finally see some hope, and finally we start to enjoying the peaceful life. Finally, people can holding to enjoy the life there, and also have the rights to go through the education, to find a job, to enjoy the peaceful life.
I see. Professor Huo, I do want to ask you about the United States. Donald Trump could have vetoed the act. He didn't. How much of that is about the tumble in his polls leading up to the re-election this year? How much politics is involved in him signing this into law?
Well, as you know, that this year is the American election year. And so I think that the political motive is very, very strong. It's very, very, very obvious. Now, because, Donald Trump, the performance quite terribly in dealing with the coronavirus. And now, U.S. leads the world in the COVID-19 confirmed cases and death tolls. And as also that recently, because of the death of the George Floyd, there is strikes and protest, anger across the United States. So I think that Donald Trump is now worried about the coming presidential election. And then, by playing tough on China, by playing games, I think it's an option for the Donald Trump administration to relieve itself, and I think that the political motive is very strong.
We're running out of time here. One last question to both of you, if you can answer me briefly. We've heard opposition from China's foreign ministry to this latest issue. What could China possibly do in reaction? Mr. Wang, starting with you.
For the U.S., it's just another example. They are interfering in other countries, and also the serious violation of the international law. So for us, the priority for us is never change. Is improve the lives and hold the peaceful in Xinjiang.
I see.
The counterterrorism issue is never changed. That is our priority, no matter what the U.S. say.
Professor Huo, countermeasures from China?
Well, first of all, you may notice that today the National People's Congress and the CPPCC and other national organs of China has expressed their opposition towards the Xinjiang Act of the United States, because this act violates the sovereignty of China. After all, Xinjiang is a part of China instead of part of the United States. As we all know, that equality of sovereignty is a treasured principle of international law. So this act obviously violates international law. Therefore, China has the justification to take countermeasures. I think first, China has expressed its opposition. And second, I should say that China has the legitimate right to take, the countermeasures depending on the situation in the future.
All right, my thanks to my guests, Wang Jiang from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, Professor Zhengxin from China University Political Science and Law. Appreciate